Hello everyone and welcome to the Indy Open Top Split. I am Mark Murphy, your host, and I'm joined alongside tonight by special guest Jacob Collins because Kyle Clinworth has decided he wants to be upside down on the racetrack with the best in the business. And Jacob, I got to say, it's a pleasure to have you back in the booth again. What can we expect tonight? What do you think we're about to see from these 19 high-profile Indy Open drivers here at Phoenix?
A train, potentially a fanned-out train on these starts and restarts. I'm not exactly sure how the it looks like we're at oval close, so we'll not see loads of people hopping to the apron and starting at five wide all over the asphalt. But I think we'll be in for an interesting game of strategy potentially. It's a long race, a lot of laps. You gotta keep your tires underneath you, make the distance, and see the finish line.
Seeing the finish line is the biggest deal tonight. You're exactly right. It is going to be very difficult to pass, as it usually is here at Phoenix. So qualifying is of the utmost importance. You see the board there. We have about 2 minutes left in the session right now. Hamilton Akabuezi, he's at the top, 18.763 on the stopwatch. Phil Kraus to his outside. Sadiq and Brophy provisionally on row 2. We've got 3 more cars that have yet to make an attempt. We've got one out on the track right now, and we're going to get on board with Matt Hollibaugh as he attempts to wrangle the Phoenix Raceway. You see him, he's riding around the top, he's in first gear, and Jacob, kind of talk to us about why a driver might do that.
Well, you're likely warming the engine, trying to get that oil temp up as high as you possibly can. Some of it is tires to a certain extent. The less you're pushing the tire on your warm-up lap, the more you have for later laps in your qualifying run. And then, obviously, the less time you spend weaving all over the track, long way around, you can, get some more time to think about how you're going to attack those corners.
Yeah, you most certainly do. A lot of that is engine heat. You want to save the tires as much as you can. Here comes Matt Hollibaugh. He is through the iClock. First time, 20.378. That is going to be good enough for 18th provisionally on the grid. You'll notice he went very high through the corners that time. It is a second lap queue here, and let's see where Matt Hollibaugh slots it in. Hollibaugh comes across the line, and he is going to be 19.034 for Matt Hollibaugh. Provisionally 13 quick. 19 cars here tonight, as we said in the original, or as we said earlier. This is a very stout field. 46-36 on the strength of it, and we're going to get right into the grid. On the pole with a lap of 194.3348, that's going to be Hamilton Akabuezi. He's going to be flanked by Phil Kraus. Row 2, Nick Sadiq and Jason Brophy. Alex Van de Zandt and Sam Carosella are going to go on from row 3, Matt Taylor. And our good friend Andrew Wood is going to start 7th and 8th. Caleb Bashir and Maddie Sinclair, they'll start 9th and 10th. The general, Kevin Burrell, he's going to go 11th. Next to our man, Kyle Clinworth, 191.9127. Jacob, you're going to have to give him some grief there. 12th quick, unlike Clindy. 13th, Matt Hollibaugh. We just watched that run. Mitch Welker, 14th. Uncle Robin Glakis and Kevin Hayes, 15th and 16th. Alan Berteau and Marco Brazil, they're going to start in row 9. Logan Edwards did not clock a time. He did due to his 2 laps, and so that means that he was unable to make one without some contretemps there, Mr. Collins.
It would appear so. I'm liking the idea of some of those guys, or Logan maybe not taking a time. It's possible he went out there, had a bit of a struggle and decided, I'm going to start this thing from the back, see what maybe he can do, just kind of cruise it around, get an idea of maybe where he can put his car over the course of the run, just see where other people are driving, maybe learn a thing or two. There's a lot that you can learn from just watching another car in your general proximity, maybe not right up behind him, but getting an idea of where you can put your car and learn a thing or two.
Most certainly. So I do want to point out Sam Carosella and all of the Fiercely Forward team, they're in new liveries today, and so sharp-looking cars for them. Also, do not be confused. Hamilton Akabuezi is on the pole. Phil Kraus is second, and those two machines are nearly identically painted. So do keep in mind, we'll call them out. The car with the one purple and one black front wing, that is Akabuezi. Phil Kraus is the car with the two purple front wings. Other than that, the P1 Docs car for Hamilton Akabuezi and the Hyperslide car, Phil Kraus, very difficult to tell apart here, Jacob, I'm sorry. My goodness.
It's all good, Mark. Yeah, I was surprised to see two roughly like fuchsia kind of purpley pink cars right at the front of the grid here. It's nice to see some more vibrant cars as we get through this season here. You know, people revamping the liveries, getting the new sponsors on board and all that. So it's cool to see.
It most certainly is. We do want to thank everybody from joining us. They're going to come through turns 3 and 4 here at the new configuration of Phoenix. Barney has the green flag in the air, and we are racing here for 140 laps at Phoenix. It's the Indy Open top split on the P1 Broadcasting Network. Right off the bat, Hamilton Akabuezi is going to jump in the lead. Phil Kraus is getting worked over by Nick Sudik for second. Sudik's going to clear Kraus. What a start for the Fiercely Ford machines.
Yeah, and you've got to think Nick Sudik is going to try to make that charge early, knowing how hard it is to pass, especially on the longer run here as tires start to fall off and you start getting more and more of those gaps built up. It's gonna come down to who's gonna make those eager moves on these early restarts that gets the track position, and it's a lot harder to lose it than to gain it here, just because of how little space there is to pass.
You know, speaking of passing, it is very difficult to pass here at Phoenix. Hamilton Akabuezi, he's going to grab the fastest lap. Meanwhile, Phil Kraus all over the back of Nick Sudik. We're going to see these cars get very close to one another, but it is almost impossible to work a move. You're going to have to line a guy up really tight, going down this part of the track from the dog leg into what used to be turns 3 and 4. Now it's 1 and 2, and you almost have to give it you almost have to get on top of them to the outside around that corner to make any sort of a move stick, and then really pinch them through turns 3 and 4 here. That's the old dog leg.
Yeah, and it was something that I was kind of talking with Kyle the other day, is about how you have to kind of swap lanes on either end of this track to try to set those passes up. So it's almost like you have to kind of commit to your line, work it as best you can, and then if you could somehow sneak it back away the other round, perform a little crossover, potentially set up that pass over the course of laps after laps after laps, just trying to make any move you can.
You got it. Then there is Clindy. He is riding along in 12th position. Meanwhile, back at the front, Nick Sudik is just at the fastest lap of the race. He just stopped the watch, 19.122 seconds. So Nick Sudik is on the charge toward teammate Hamilton Akabuezi. However, there is a wall of air there. It's going to be very difficult for Sudik, even if he is fractionally faster, to pull in on Hamilton. Meanwhile, we've got a battle back for 7th place. Andrew Wood in the Hyperslide entry. He is going toward the inside of Sam Carosella in the Fiercely Ford car.
It looks like he's trying to arc that corner and get that exit to just peek to the inside down the backstretch here coming into turn 3.
There you go. There is a bit of a server issue. I assure you, Carosella's car, there it goes, snaps back into place. We're on board the Woody. This car is painted entirely in wood grain for Andrew Wood. It is a very interesting looking machine. There you see it. We'll jump back on the roll bar though and see how he's trying to work Sam Carosella. He drew alongside momentarily, but he's forced to get out of the power and lost all of that momentum, and he goes back to a couple of tenths of a second. But there you saw it from the onboard. He's working the high line, trying to get going. Meanwhile, Mitch Welker has headed for the pit lane, as has Kevin Hayes.
Yeah, it looks like Mitch Welker may be missing the left front side of his wing. I'm not sure if maybe he got loose and clipped a wall somewhere, or if that's just potentially a car impact.
Well, the great thing about having the TV controls is we can figure that out, my man. We'll just go back to when Mitch Welker did have a wing. And we're going to be waiting for a second here. My goodness. Okay, so here he is. He's running along. This may have happened on the start. on the original start. There's Mitch. Okay, so here's what happens to Mitch Welker. He gets checked up. Matty Sinclair gets checked up. Clindy gets checked up. And Mitch Welker just runs square in the back of Kyle Clinworth. He tried to stick with it for a number of laps and just couldn't make it happen. That's unfortunate for Mitch Welker because coming to the pit lane, that's going to put him a lap down. Same for Kevin Hayes. Kevin Hayes only drove through the pit lane, so that could have been a penalty for him. Mitch Welker 3 laps down by virtue of having to come all the way down pit road and then stop. And so, tough break for Mitch Welker. He's going to need a caution in the right spot to get back into this deal. Meanwhile, Nick Sudik still chases this man, Hamilton Akabuezi. Akabuezi has checked out. He's almost 3/4 of a second up on Sudik. Meanwhile, Phil Kraus continues to try to track Nick Sudik. Jason Brophy is right behind them. You've got Alex Van de Zandt in 5th. The top 5 seem to be pretty firmly ensconced in their positions here, Mr. Collins.
Yeah, it looks like they kind of decided to play nice with each other to this opening stint here and kind of get in line and see where their cars are going to kind of end up over the course of this run. It'll be interesting to see if any of them try to play any sort of unique strategy to maybe leapfrog each other as we get closer and closer to that pit window. Not exactly quite sure when that opens. However, it is always something you got to kind of commit to early to make your decision for when you're going to come in to try to get that overcut.
Great question, Jacob. Traditionally, you can do anywhere between 60 and 70 laps here at Phoenix. I seem to recall a race where Trace Shadid and I went like 70 laps, but there was a bunch of yellow in there. So typically open races, they try to schedule it for 2. They try to make them 2 stops. So I would expect to see him somewhere 50 to 60 range would be my guess. I did not turn any laps here though, so but 50 to 60 seems about right. You're on the throttle a lot here, which makes it different than most miles. You're only really lifting for that corner right there.
Yeah, you got to imagine that the decent amount of more banking that this track has compared to, say, a Milwaukee or New Hampshire, where you're not able to quite stay full rip, if you will, through the corner, is definitely going to play into that fuel number as the run progresses.
Let's jump back on board with Andrew Wood. He has been worth the price of admission thus far. He's working over Sam Carosella. That is the battle for 7th position. And you see Wood. He's going high into the corner. He's going low coming off of it. Andrew Wood has the run. He's going to slip to the bottom here going into turns 3 and 4. Can he make it work? Wood on the bottom, Carosella on the top. Andrew Wood clears him and makes the pass. But you can see he's not really lifting all that much, friends.
No, and you've got to wonder if he's kind of working the in-car tools to get that run to set up on either end of the track, because you have to imagine trying to get your car to stick on that flatter turns 1 and 2 compared to the more banked 3 and 4, especially on that low side, is a big shift.
You do, and the thing about the Hyperslide cars, traditionally they are a little bit more free than most of us run them, and so that lends well to running that high line. Andrew Wood made it work, and the Woody is going to drive it into second. Best battle on the track, other than this one, is right here. That's Alan Berteau. He is 13th. He's working on Kyle Clinworth for 12th. Clindy has Matt Hollybaugh in the All-American iRacers machine in 11th, right in front of him. And so this is a pretty good scrap for 11th, 12th, and 13th. This is about the best battle on the racetrack, although Phil Kraus is also getting ready to work over Sudik. Kraus tries to get to the bottom. He's trying to gain that position going into turns 3 and 4. Doesn't quite make it work that time. Sudik gives him room on the bottom. He doesn't cut him off. Phil's going to try to get it to the bottom one more time here, going through turns 1 and 2, Jacob.
Yeah, and it looked like he was basically ready to make that move as soon as it represented itself coming off of turn, or I guess out of turn 1. I'm not exactly sure how you count these anymore with the start-finish line midway through the corner. But, yeah, he basically put his nose down there and just committed to working that low line through the opening couple corners there and was able to make the pass.
Yeah, this track. I always want to call this 1 and 2, and I always want to call the turn before the old main straight 3 and 4. The track very oddly configured. That's why Gary Godso calls it good Phoenix and bad Phoenix. And this one is the bad Phoenix. Meanwhile, we've got lap traffic. That's Kevin Hayes. He is immediately to the front of second place Phil Kraus, and we'll get a look off the gearbox back toward Phil. Hamilton has made his way through, but Phil Kraus is definitely feeling the dirty air from this man right here. That's Kevin Hayes in the number 19 machine. He was the last car in. He's making use of it. He's made up a spot on his car number. And that was, Jacob, always my deal in these. It wasn't necessarily win the race. It was just finish at my car number or better.
Yeah, there is something to be said for that kind of built-in benchmark that iRacing gives you when you register for these sessions. Of you've got a number on your car that's based off your supposed skill rating. How much of that is necessarily true is to be determined, as we like to say. But
Caleb Brashear gets into the wall a little bit going through turns 1 and 2. He's been passed by Matt Hollybaugh and Kyle Clinworth. Now he's being worked over by Alan Berteau. Brashear got way wide up there toward the start-finish line, scraped the wall a little bit, and that's cost him several positions. Robin Glakis is also showing as dropping through the field. He's almost been caught now by Marco Brazil. Marco not having a good day. He's accustomed to racing at the front on the bigger ovals. Today at Phoenix, he started in the back, and he's very much stayed there. Uncharacteristic for a very rapid Brazilian, Marco Brazil.
Yeah, and you've got to wonder if some of that's just getting buried back in dirty air through maybe a somewhat more lackluster than expected qualifying effort. As you know, the more cars you have in front of you, the harder it is to navigate that dirty air. And with a track as narrow as Phoenix is, it almost compounds the more cars you have in front of you, even more so than some of the bigger tracks, because there's just less space for you to find a place to put a little bit of clean air on either side of your wing to make it through the corners that little bit quicker.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, Marco's also known just in general as a guy who kind of likes to run his car with a little bit less downforce. Well, at a track like Phoenix, that can hurt you because you need all the grip that you can.
It looks like Alexander Van de Sant just made the pass on Nick Sudik using Kevin Hayes as a pick, coming through 1 and 2 there.
Let's go ahead and get back to Kevin Hayes. He is running right there now behind Jason Brophy. So the top 5 have gotten through him. You are correct. Alex Van de Sant did make the pass on Nick Sudik. He was the beneficiary of Kevin Hayes. My apologies. On missing that. I'm going to jump on board the roll hoop with Alex Van de Sant. You see free track up ahead of him. For Phil Kraus, he sees Hamilton Akabuezi. And then go back to Andrew Wood. Something I'd like to kind of point out, and this is kind of a secret, not so secret, of the Indy Open Series. But you see that emblem up there on the top of the roll cage? You see it on Andrew Wood. You don't see it on Matt Taylor. You don't see it on Sam Carosella, Kevin Brell. You see it on Matt Hollybaugh. It's on Marco Brazil's car. You know what that is?
I wouldn't have the darndest clue.
Jacob, it's on my car. To put it up there, I had to take my sponsor logos off of it. That is the Race Spot emblem. And why am I pointing out a rival YouTube network? Well, the reason I'm doing so is in order to race in the Open Wheels 500, you get a special decal pack. And so a lot of guys leave that on there the whole year. It's kind of a badge of honor to have made that race. And so a lot of guys leave that on. This year, that has been rebranded the Hoosier 500, and it is going to take place. It is going to take place Sunday, December 14th, 2025. It's been being sponsored by PRI, which is one of the biggest automotive shows on the planet out of Indianapolis. Race is going to be showed live there. We're just a little bit under 270 days until what's billed as the world's greatest sim race. You can check that out. We're going to have practice and some qualifying live on the P1 Broadcasting Network, and we're honored to have that. Once the race details come out, we'll let you know what those are as well. But that's what that symbol means, Jacob. If you see it, that's emblematic of a qualifier for the Hoosier 500. You learn something new every day, don't you, brother?
You certainly do, and it's really cool to see that those the community members take so much pride in those big events like that, right? Like, that's one of those things where if you get into that thing, you're going to want to have that on your car as long as you possibly can have it, until somebody tells you, hey buddy, it's been 3 years, are you going to change your paint?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of guys do leave that on there all year. I certainly have left mine on all year. Some of the others have done the same. Hamilton Akaboise leads at 47 laps into 100, scheduled 140. We are approaching that window where if you're going to make it 2 stops, the window's about to open, Mr. Collins. Akaboise has about a half a second over Kraus, and they have left the hiccups. They have left Alex Van de Zandt. He is now 2.7 seconds behind. That suggests to me that maybe Alex is on some sort of an economy run. Sudik is a half a second back from him. That's Nick Sudik in the Fiercely Ford P1 Docks machine. And then the Hyperslide car of Jason Brophy, he runs 5th. He has caught Sudik. You're going to have to go back another 2.5 seconds to get to the Woody of Andrew Wood. He's made up a ton of spots, which is to say he's made up 2. But here at Phoenix, 2 is a ton of spots under green flag action.
Oh, most definitely, and especially when you consider how quickly the car's kind of strung out. He probably had to claw some of that back a little bit over the course of the opening part of this run. I've kind of been watching the gap that Phil Kraus has slowly been reeling in Hamilton here. It's almost going to be interesting to see if they maybe come to the pit lane at differing times, just given how close together they've gotten, or if they come in together to try to potentially do some sort of group strategy, maybe save some fuel, swap with each other, all the tricks in the book, if you will.
Well, there are advantages and disadvantages, of course, to the early pit. Watching the battle for the lead, Phil Kraus, Hamilton Akaboise, don't know if that was netcode, but it showed his car kind of scraped the fence there a little bit. He does have Marco Brazil directly to the front of him, and that's affecting the handling on the car of Hamilton Akaboise, because right behind him is the similarly liveried machine of Phil Kraus. We'll jump back on board Hamilton. But yeah, I mean, there's all sorts to play here. There are advantages to the undercut, which is you're going to get some stickier rubber. You're going to get out there. The times have fallen off about 3 or 4 tenths a lap. So you're going to be able to make some hay while the sun is shining, as they say. The bad part about that is here at Phoenix, you make a pit stop under green, even if you're the leader, you're going to go at least 2 laps down as you watch Akaboise work to the high side of Marco Brazil. And Phil Kraus is there. Hamilton drills it to the low groove. Beautiful over-under execution from Akaboise. Phil Kraus going to follow him right on through. Battle for the lead right here. P1 Broadcasting 54 of 140. And if you like what you see, please do go ahead and grab the like button on the video. Ring the bell to subscribe to the channel. We are on a march toward 1,000. By my last count, Collins, what's the count here? What are we at?
Last I saw was just over 900.
Yeah, let me get that pulled up. We are at 915. So 85 subscribers to go until we hit that magical 1,000 mark. And when we do, we're going to throw one big old party here on the P1 Broadcasting Network, because that moves you up in the algorithm and it gets these drivers that much more exposure, and they sure do deserve it. And how could you not be entertained with Phil Kraus all over the gearbox of Hamilton Akaboise as they work through traffic, approaching the start of lap 58 here at the Phoenix Raceway. Just trying to go through Logan Edwards there. Next up on the hit parade is Robin Glakis, but to the pit lane is going to come Akaboise, and he's slowed up a little bit by Uncle Rob. They're going to hit pit road, the cone, right together, and we're going to cover the stop for your leader, Hamilton Akaboise. Down the pit road they come. Now Hamilton is going to pull all the way to the left going around this bend. He does not go through the pit boxes. There is no governance on that here in an official series. You can go all the way down there if you want. Akabuezi chooses not to. And that's almost a reflex action for those of us who run in leagues where you have to stay all the way to the right until a certain number of pit boxes out. Hamilton is going to get fuel, tires, and down and away he goes. 60 laps into a 100 lapper. And just so that we document it, Hamilton Akabuezi 1 lap down, and he's at the tail end of 1 lap down because Phil Kraus is right behind him. Here's the onboard from Phil Kraus, although he's coming to pit lane and almost loses it.
Yeah, and the pit entry here is really, really awkward now, especially as you're coming kind of through the corner to try to make it to it. We saw even instances of, I believe, a pace car hitting the sand barrels during one of the NASCAR races because they just kind of lost track of where they were through the corner there. It's definitely gotten trickier as this place has kind of evolved with the new layout.
Got our man Christian Steele checking in. Thank you so much for joining us, Christian. And you're absolutely right. What a drift from Phil. He brings the Hyperslide machine into his pit stall. He is gone, 8.7 seconds. That's going to turn the lead over to this man, Jason Brophy. But he's on pit lane, and hopefully he has not spun, or had any other hijinks getting there. But you see Brophy pull into his pit stall. Alan Berteau would have inherited the lead, but he has also stopped, and that's going to give it back to Phil Kraus. Now, Phil is in the lead. He's got 1.4 seconds. Meanwhile, Alex Van de Zandt has swiped second from Hamilton Akabuezi during the pit cycle. They are right behind Robin Glakis, so they've got a lap car that's kind of, not saying interfering, but Jacob, they've got a lap car there in front of him. Van de Zandt has leapt Akabuezi, and so he's going to make it a Hyperslide 1-2 here.
Yeah, you've got to wonder if maybe he had a little bit more fuel in the tank to try to close that gap up. Maybe took some sort of other gamble getting into his box. Maybe got just better in out. You know, there's so much time that can be made up just on your pit in and your pit out time. Plus all the other factors that come with guys pitting in and pitting out at different points. The cars you get stuck behind, as we saw in Glakis, kind of pull out of the way here for Van de Zandt and Akabuezi here.
Well, and you know, there's something to be said for being good on and off of pit road. Alex Van de Zandt, 39.7 seconds on pit lane, 8.1 seconds in the box. That's pretty doggone quick. Phil Kraus, 40.9 seconds on pit lane, 8.7 in the box. Hamilton Akabuezi, 41.5 seconds. So he gave up almost 2 seconds to Alex Van de Zandt, 9.6 in the box, which leads me to believe that there might have been just a little bit of damage on that number one machine, because we saw it begin to fade at the end of the run. Meanwhile, Phil Kraus and Steele, you're right. It's goodbye, Phil. He is 1.65 seconds ahead of Alex Van de Zandt. Last lap, 19.143 to a 236 for Van de Zandt. Phil Kraus building a very comfortable margin. And it's worth saying here, we've been caution-free to this point.
Yeah, that's not something you see super, super often, regardless of where we go, even in these top splits. As there's often, sometimes there's trouble getting in and out of the pit lane, cars checking up for each other, that maybe someone misses their call for pit in and they just get kind of slammed into the back of. There's so many things that can bring out those yellows, forced or unforced, that having any of these races go green, especially these 100 plus lappers, is impressive in its own right.
It most certainly is. But it's not surprising here at a place like Phoenix. When you've got 19 guys, a full field here is 26. So you're 7 short of a full rack, so to speak. Still watching Phil Kraus. He's pulling up on the 15 machine. That's Alan Berteau. Berteau run along in 12th. He's not having a bad night, but Phil, he's got him about a lap down here. When you see, a shorter field on a mile that's very difficult to pass at, this isn't like Milwaukee or one of those places where it can be easier to pass. We're watching Andrew Wood now. He's battling Clinworth, and these guys, they're going to want to get going because they see Phil coming. Andrew Wood loses the spot to Clindy, and Wood is going to be next. Phil Kraus slams it to the inside of Andrew Wood. He's going to get by, put Woody a lap down. Now Berteau, he sees that happen. He wants the spot on Andrew Wood. Wood lost his place on the lead lap, and he lost 2 spots there in about just about a mile and a half. Next up on the hit parade for Phil Kraus is Clindy, and Clindy's running along in 10th.
Yeah, and you have to imagine once Kraus makes it through here, it's not going to be a matter of if, it's going to be a matter of when he kind of flies away and there's no chance to stay on this lead lap. So as this IndyCar tradition, you are allowed to fight basically as hard as you possibly can to stay on this lead lap.
Whoa, Clindy!
Yeah, as we see.
Kyle Clinworth, he's going to fight. That's a man who is not going to back down. Clindy is going to do absolutely everything he can to keep the faster man behind him as long as possible. That's going to be to the benefit of Alex Van de Zandt, who was 0.2 quicker that last time by. But Phil Kraus desperately wants through. Clinworth desperately wants to stay on the lead lap, but I think that hyperslide machine is just too strong. Well, he kept a wing there, Jacob.
Yeah, and that little bit of wing, it might be all it takes sometime, but it looks like we'll get Phil to at least clear Kyle here. Wonder if he's going to maybe try to fight back for it, but you got to think that once Kraus rightfully earned that pass on Kyle, he's kind of just going to let him go.
Yeah, he's gone through. Next up on the hit parade is going to be Matt Hollybaugh, and he's in a battle for position with Sam Carosella. Sam just went through and claimed 8th place. Phil Kraus right up on the gearbox now of 9th place, Matt Hollybaugh. 78 laps, almost 79 of 140, and that means that we can flip the counter. We've got 62 to go already here at Phoenix, more than halfway through, just about 30 minutes into the event. This is going quickly, but as I was saying, if you get a track like this where it's hard to pass and you've got a short field, it can be, you can run through it pretty doggone quick. Phil Kraus is the one that's probably in the most danger, just because he's one of the few cars that's got a speed differential on other people.
Yeah, and that's something you kind of have to manage with lap traffic, is just how much closing speed you have on them. Because even if you are racing, the same car, depending on where your tires are coming in, coming out, where you're running, that gap can be greatly exaggerated, especially as you kind of get in the toe of these cars down the straightaways, and you can suck up right up to them. And then you have to kind of wonder where to put your car after that, because it's just so fast sometimes.
Yeah, looking off the back of Sam Carosella, cue the Jaws music. Here comes Phil Kraus. He is just about to put a lap on 8th place, and he's got the general Kevin Burrell not very far in front of him. And so while Phil continues to dominate here, let's give a shout out and shout out and some pictures to some other drivers in the field. There's the MadWorks machine of Matt Taylor. We missed his paint scheme last week because of technical difficulties, but there it is, the MadWorks machine of Matt Taylor. You need sunglasses to look at that car, chrome and purple. It's a good-looking machine, and he's giving it a ride. He's up to 6th. Speaking of the general, there's Kevin Burrell in the Fiercely Ford entry, and he's got Phil Kraus right behind him now. But you're right. Well, Apex Chris checks in the chat. He says, darn it, wrong pink car in the lead. Hamilton's not having a bad day. He is 3rd, and they've got some distance between Akabuezi and Brophy, some 5 seconds. Kevin Burrell desperately trying to get past Marco Brazil here. We've talked about Hollybaugh, Bruteau, and Glenkus. Matty Sinclair. We haven't talked much about Matty Sinclair today. Matty, he is run along in 13th position. He started 10th, so he's dropped a little bit in the familiar Nigel Mansell liveried Kmart Haviland car. I always liked that car, Collins. I always liked it.
That's just a classic combination of colors and sponsors, in my opinion. It doesn't matter where you put it. You had the... I seem to remember the Haviland scheme Ricky Rudd ran in the early 2000s on that 28 machine. That stood out a lot. Mostly because it was constantly in front of me as I would try to win races at Richmond and NASCAR Thunder, as one does.
I'm gonna hit you with one that you probably don't know, and that is Davey Allison 1990. So it was all black with gold numbers and letters, and they changed it later to the kind of the red, black, and white scheme. But I always liked the gold. I thought that was a sharp looking car, especially in like Bristol when they go to the night race. And then my second favorite one would be this. Now, the way that they did their liveries back then was that the Indy cars for the Andretti's and the stock car for Davey Allison were liveried nearly identical. And so this car is 92, 93-ish spec. The 92, 93 NASCAR Winston Cup cars for Davey Allison were just about some of the sharpest machines you'll ever see. The big Texaco star on the front. But Matty Sinclair, he runs along in 13th. Kevin Hayes, we touched on him briefly. He started 16th. He currently runs 14th. And then you got to go all the way back. Marco Brazil, he's up to 15th now due to the retirements of Andrew Wood, Caleb Brashear, and Mitch Welker. But Marco Brazil, he started 18th on the day. He is currently 15th, and Marco is 4 laps in arrears. You see him run along there behind. Hamilton Akabuezi. And then Logan Edwards is on pit lane. He has not retired the car. He started shotgun on the field without a time. Logan Edwards has been on pit lane for 6 minutes, 20 laps down. I would think we can safely assume that Logan Edwards is just observing at this point.
Yeah, there is something to be said for staying in the session and watching it progress so you can get a better idea of maybe what you could do if your car was, still in to fight for it. And it doesn't take too long to come back to one of these places, and, you can take some of those lessons learned and apply them.
Most certainly. So we'll reset the field for you. 47 to go. Phil Kraus leads it by 2.5 seconds roughly over this man, Alex Van de Zandt. Everybody up through P6 is a lap down, by the way. So we'll go to the lead lap cars. Van de Zandt is second. Hamilton Akabuezi is third. There are big gaps between these cars now. Jason Brophy is 3.5 seconds back of Akabuezi. He runs fourth in the Hyperslide entry. Nick Sudik in the Fiercely Ford car is fifth. He's another couple of seconds back. Matt Taylor in the MadWorks car has been catching Nick Sudik for that final slot in the top 5. And so this is one that we'll keep an eye on. It is the best battle on the racetrack. It is the closest on the racetrack amongst the lead lap cars. Clinworth, Hollybaugh, and Carousel are all kind of together for 8th, 9th, and 10th. I'll keep an eye on that one. But the best battle for position is this one. It is Matt Taylor, and we'll look off at his roll bar as he tries to chase down Nick Sudik for the final spot in the top 5. We would anticipate one more pit cycle here, and that's going to happen probably within the next 20 to 25 laps or so. We do have a car on the apron coming into the pit lane. That's going to be Robin Gleikus. Uncle Rob going to...
Yeah. Go ahead, Mark.
I was going to say Uncle Rob going to call for an early pit, sensing it may be going green. Logan Edwards checked in, by the way, in the chat. Jacob, he said, bad day got worse. He hit the wall on a 2 and lost a second lap in damage. And here comes the MadWorks entry of Matt Taylor. You saw it live off of his roll bar. Here he comes, and this is going to trigger the beginning of the final pit stop cycle. Go ahead, Jacob.
Yeah, and it only takes one car to hit that pit lane to start, the whole sequence of when are people going to start making their way on through. I just want to say that I caught while we were riding on board with Matt Taylor maybe a lap or two prior to him coming in. He hit the apron and just started sliding on corner exit, just at ever so slight. But you could tell as soon as it starts sliding away like that you just got to catch those things.
Well, and one of the things that one of those things that Reaper's Double 91 will notice, and he's one of our competitors in the AMA Stock Car Series on Thursday and Friday nights, and shout out to Donald for joining us. That's Donald Green. Shout out to him for joining us tonight to watch the Indy cars. Always love to see the crossover between the stock car and Indy car guys. A lot of mutual respect in the community. for both disciplines. But one of the things that fans will notice here is that the Indy cars do not run the open dog leg, and that's for a very good reason. It may be Phoenix, and you may see stock cars use the apron here, but it is still very, very bad in an Indy car.
Yeah, that was one of those things that when we used to come here with the tour modifieds every once in a while, we'd run the open dog leg, and you transition out of that apron, and it would just get so loose underneath you with that big right rear tire just wanting to hook you straight into that inside wall.
I can believe it. The other thing is these cars are so low, they'd probably turn into giant surfboards if they tried to run the stock car line around here. That is not Phil Krause into the wall. That's just a little bit of net code. We are 35 laps to go here. We are awaiting pit stops. Nick Sudik has come to the pit lane, and so he's really the first of those front runners to have made the pit stop. We're going to monitor his lap times. His last time through 19,365. Phil Krause 19,410. So Nick Sudik is faster than the leader by virtue of having stopped. Matt Hollybaugh has also been in. Robin Glakis has jumped another spot. He's up to 11th by virtue of the short pit. Matty Sinclair is on pit road. We're just waiting on, here's Kevin Burrell into the pit lane. So now all eyes are on Phil Krause. When is he going to make that final stop? He's got some time to burn. He's got 3.2 seconds in the bank should he wish to stay out. How much longer does he chance it, though, knowing those other guys are going to be 0.3 of a second a lap quicker until he does?
And that's part of the, I guess, the fun you get to have when you kind of build that gap up a little bit is you kind of play around with going just that little bit longer, see if you can maybe catch some people out, trap them a lap down so they have to take a wave or something to get back on that lead lap. You know, you can make it take an advantageous free pit stop, if you will.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not just the lead lap cars. Here's Kyle Clinworth. He has not yet stopped. 47 laps out on his current run. And Clindy, you know, for his bit, he knows he's not going to get the wave around, but he also knows, hey, if I stick around here and stay out, I'm going to have a huge advantage over those cars one lap down. And right now, there are only 3 of those. Van de Zandt has gone a lap down. He's on pit lane. Clinworth is going to pass him. Zandt's going to go 2 laps down. Clindy and Alan Brutteau are the only cars 1 lap down right now. You get a caution flag with 30 to go. Clindy and Brutteau have locked themselves into a top 5.
Yeah, that's one of those things that you kind of got to take the gamble every once in a while, especially you end up in those situations maybe on the back foot, if you will, to try to eke your way into something that you might not have been able to do otherwise.
Very, very true. You got to throw the dice. If you don't, sometimes you don't have the speed, but sometimes you can kind of luck out. Phil Krause has come out right behind Alex Van de Zandt, but he's also coming to pit lane. Here comes Phil, 51 laps in on his current run. Krause is going to hit the pit lane. That's going to leave Hamilton Akabuezi out. Akabuezi is going to go one more time. 55 laps now for Akabuezi, so he's got to be getting on to the end of that tank. You know, Donald, we do need to get Clindy in a stock car, and he is very good in one of those, is he not, Mr. Collins?
You know, he's been talking, wanting to make the stock car jump a little bit here. He's been getting antsy for some fendered action. I know at the start of the season with the introduction of the new INDYCAR Menards Series car, he was like, I want to go INDYCAR Menards racing where I can tire save my butt off and get a solid finish every time. And who knows, maybe we'll see him in one of these days. Yeah,
the ARCA cars are a ton of fun. Meanwhile, we're looking at Hamilton Akabuezi. He's coming in to make his pit stop. That turns the lead over to this man, Jason Brophy. It's also let Clindy back on the lead lap, although momentarily, because Brophy is going to make the pass, put him a lap down. I wonder just how much fuel Clindy has saved. It's almost as if he and Brutteau have said, look, we're going to make this bed and lay in it. We're going to go as long as humanly possible. Meanwhile, Brophy seems to be on that same strategy. He's saying, look, will anybody throw the yellow? There's debris everywhere. It's raining.
Find the magical soda can in the infield and chuck it.
If this were real life, Jason Brophy would have thrown his water bottle, his gloves, and probably the fire extinguisher out on the Phoenix Raceway. He's got 55 laps now on the current run, and this is about as long as we've seen anybody go. Clindy, he just clocked through at 56. These guys aren't stopping.
Maybe they're just trying to do the environment some good out here in the desert and save as much of that fuel as they can before burning it up.
Well, their stops are definitely going to be shorter. They got 23 laps to go here. I don't see how they can make any more than 2 or 3 more laps. Brophy and Brophy is last time through 19,495. Phil Kraus 19,107. So they're 0.3 to a half a second a lap slower than the rest of the field at this point. Everybody else is in the 0.1 to 0.3 bracket. Well, that's just it, Donald. I mean, we could throw the roll bar padding, but we don't have any.
I was thinking, didn't Ward Burton throw like some wrist braces at some point at Bristol?
You're thinking about his conflict with Dale Jr. Brophy is going to bring it to the pit lane. That's going to leave Clindy out. Clindy also going to come in, which turns the lead back over to this man, Phil Kraus. He's going to need to come by one more time to take that lead, but that was after he and Dale Jr. had been involved in an accident. Dale Jr. said he couldn't understand what Ward was saying, but he knew he was mad when the heat shields off the feet came flying through his window net. So there goes Kraus. He is your leader. You see him. He just passes a very slow Marco Brazil. Brazil is on the apron. He had not yet stopped, and there's Marco. We've got quite a few people in the chat asking about Marco Brazil. He is 15th after having started 18th. He is 4 laps in arrears. He will likely come out 6 laps down here, and I'd say that 15th is just about what's on offer for Marco. Matt Taylor, after his solid run, a 47-second pit stop for damage, he has fallen to 14th in the MadWorks machine. He is 3 laps down. That promotes Kevin Hayes to 13th. Meanwhile, the clinic from Phil Kraus, well, it continues. He's gotten back in the lead. He's got 3 seconds in hand over this man, Alex Van de Zandt, and another 4 seconds back, another 7 seconds back to Hamilton Akabuezi in third. The front of the field stretched way out. Jason Brophy is 4th. There he is. Running 5th is Nick Sudik.
You know, I'm starting to think Phil might have painted his car purple to tell us that he was going to Thanos snap us out of existence in this one.
Ooh, he's about to put a lap on Nick Sudik. That would mean that he has lapped up through the top 5 here. And there he goes. So only 4 cars remain on the lead lap. Kraus, Zandt, Akabuezi, and Brophy. We're watching Phil Kraus. We'll get on board with him and let you kind of see what he's doing around here. 5th gear, very smooth. He does not lift going into turns 1 and 2, right around the bottom. He'll touch 6th gear down to 5th, and a very small lift. That's all it is for a lap around Phoenix here. Brandon Trost, you're exactly correct. The setup of Phil Kraus does seem to be dominant. Hyperslide does have 3 of the 4 cars remaining on the lead lap. Hamilton Akabuezi is the lone exception in the Fiercely Forward entry. Will Stearns, sometimes it's like that. We haven't had any cautions here to bunch the field up, and so it does get it can get very strung out very quickly. If we don't have that, Matt Wagner checks into the chat. Good to see you, buddy. 11 laps to go here. We do thank everybody who has tuned it in. We do have a huge number of viewers here. By the way, Jacob, the concurrence just hit 40, and so we want to thank everybody who has joined us here on the P1 Broadcasting Channel for live Indy Open Top Split action from Phoenix. If you haven't already done so, make sure you smash the like button on the video. Ring the bell to subscribe to the channel. We are on our march toward 1,000, and the algorithm bump that happens when we get to that does put a bigger spotlight on these drivers. So ring the bell to subscribe to the channel. Just 85 left, Jacob.
The closer you get, the further it seems to take, right?
Yeah. We've been counting that down for some time in our in our private Discord channel. Big shout out to everybody watching. Big shout out to Hoosier 500 organizers, Ryan Schold and his team. To Ryan Tanner and his team. I know they're out there watching. Many of these same drivers will be in the biggest race in sim racing in December, and so happy to shout out to them. Thanks to Scott's Moto Adventures for checking in. He says he's working on a project, so no racing, but it's nice to have something on in the background. Well, it's great to have your brother, and we appreciate it. Working on 7 laps to go. Phil Kraus right behind the number, is that, let's see, that would be Alan Berteau in the 15. He's going to put Berteau one more lap down. So Berteau has now gone 2 laps down. He's putting the second lap on a lot of guys in the top 10 here. That's almost unheard of.
Yeah, and you have to wonder the level of effort that goes into just managing that lap traffic as you come back around these subsequent times rather. I saw the lap prior with Berteau. He kind of lifted coming to the start-finish line on his inside because he wasn't quite sure if Berteau was going to stay up on the wall. So it's definitely that slow game of patience where you know you've got a decent gap to work with, but you also don't want to let up all that time.
Well, and it's really a game too for Phil of survival, right? I mean, how awful would it have been to have been this dominant, lapped everybody up to 4th place, and really he's within striking distance of Brophy. He could lap everybody but the podium. But how awful would that be to be so rampant and then be involved in an incident with a lap car? So, you know, I have to think Phil's going to, at some point now, 3 laps to go, coming to get 2 to go, you know, maybe Phil would just back off and say, look, I got it 1.
Yeah, but you see that car in front of you and you just got to pass it.
Well, race drivers aren't like that. Right? We don't necessarily think in those terms, at least you don't. I sometimes might, but I know Jacob Collins doesn't. You put that visor down, the red mist comes in, 1 lap to go, white flag is in the air for Phil Kraus. You don't want to hear the words slow down and take it easy, do you?
No.
For Phil Kraus, it is a dominant performance. Here he comes off of turn number 4. He is going to scrape the outside wall in celebration, and Phil Kraus is going to be your winner tonight in Phoenix. There comes Alex Van de Zandt in second, waiting on Hamilton Akabuezi in third. And where is Jason Brophy there? He comes through. Some of the other lap cars are going to finish their runs, and we have completed 140 laps at Virtual Phoenix. The time for the race tonight, 50 minutes. How about that, Jacob?
In and out.
We were not here very long for certain sure. Cue the music because the producer forgot to do it, and here we go with the results from Virtual Phoenix. Phil Kraus, dominant performance over Hyperslide stablemate Alex Van de Zandt in second. Hamilton Akabuezi is going to be third and round out your podium. Jason Brophy, the only other car on the lead lap. Nick Sudi, Kevin Burrell, Matt Hollybaugh, Sam Carosella, Kyle Clinworth, they were 1 lap down. Alan Berteau 2 laps down in 10th. In 11th, Robin Glakis, Matty Sinclair is 12th. Matt Taylor 3 laps down in 13th after an extra pit stop. Kevin Hayes is 14th, 5 laps in arrears. Marco Brazil, he is the final finisher, 6 laps off the pace. Logan Edwards, Andrew Wood, Caleb Brashear, and Mitch Welker did not finish. 19 cars came in to the race tonight. And that's where we leave it. See Phil Kraus pulling into victory lane. Looks like Brophy's going to join him there.
I'm just glad we can do this now at some of these tracks. I know. We were testing Bristol, I think, at the start of the season. You can do that there now. It's cool to see them be able to do it like they do in the real world now.
Yeah, most certainly is, and I definitely agree with that sentiment. That's why I always like going to Fontana and Michigan, they were two of the only tracks that you could go to victory lane. Let's see if we've got any of the drivers that have popped up here. There's Hamilton Akabuezi on the screen. Go to the Discord. And we've got nobody. We give the drivers a few more moments to make their way over should they choose to do so. Thank you so much for everybody who checked in the chat. Definitely thank you as well. We do have Phil Kraus in the waiting room, and we do not want to keep Phil waiting. Phil Kraus, dominant performance. We'll go ahead and bring him up. Phil, you got Mark and Jacob Collins in the P1 broadcasting booth. Do you have a copy?
Yo, how are you?
You know, we're not doing too bad. I don't know what word to use other than dominant. Hamilton led it early. Yes, Sadiq got by you, fell back to third, got back by Nick and Hamilton in pretty short order, and then checked out. What's your secret here at Phoenix? Because you lapped everybody but the top four.
Wasn't any particular secret. I had just the power slide setup that Jason Brophy put together was insane on the long run, and that's something we've prided ourselves on the short tracks for probably the past year and a half now. So I'm glad to carry that over to Phoenix because we haven't really run a competitive race at Phoenix in a while. But it's definitely nice to carry that over here and show that it's not just a certain set of tracks where we're able to do that. Like on this current physics that we are probably the team to beat on long runs or just on short tracks in general.
I can vouch for those cars being very difficult to catch on a long run on a short with a long run on a short track. Jacob, what do you have for our winner, Phil Kraus, this evening?
Traffic management here seems to be, trickier than it is even at some of the other short ovals with kind of less lanes to work with and a bit more unpredictability with where the cars are going to be. How did you feel like you were able to manage that as well as you did?
It's definitely a lot harder to manage than the other short tracks just because you're running at a lot higher speed, and as you alluded to, there's less lanes you can run because even at Gateway where you're like almost flat through 3 and 4, there's a lot of different lanes you can run to mitigate dirty air, just, change up your approach to the corner just so you can build a run or something like that. But here it's pretty set in stone through 3 and 4. 1 and 2 you can migrate a little bit, but it's definitely a lot harder to navigate traffic here than the other short tracks, I would say.
For certain, sure. I do have one more quick question for you about that traffic. Late in the race, it seemed as though you were catching them rapidly, and there were a couple of close calls, at least on our screen. Was there any consideration of just backing off, knowing you had it in the bag, or were you still wanting to charge forward, thinking that maybe Alex could catch you?
Oh yeah, I wasn't being particularly aggressive with traffic the last run at all. I pretty much toned it back after the end of the second stint because I had about a 3-second lead on Alex, and I knew he pit 4 laps before me. And just the nature of this car on the short ovals, if you're on a lighter car at the end, you're going to end up going faster, especially knowing that we're running the same car.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for the answer. I just kind of had that question. You are the winner. The floor is yours. There's nobody behind you, sir. Shout outs, friends, family, sponsors. You got the mic, my man. Go for it.
Just shout out to everyone at Powerslide Motorsports and Team Hype, mostly Jason Brophy for all his work on the setup. Adam, obviously, usually does a lot of hard work on the setups. And Rob and I, we were just kind of, we turn laps and give feedback. But yeah, big shout outs to all the setup builders. Because without a setup in this car, you are nowhere, even if you're a driving god.
Yeah. No, that's for certain, sure. So we thank you so much for joining us, Phil. Keep going fast, having fun, and I'm sure we'll see you next week.
Yes, sir. I'll keep going fast, keep turning left.
Yes, sir. That is Phil Kraus. He is tonight's winner. We do not have Hamilton Akabuezi or Alex Van de Zandt in the Discord, so we'll go ahead and give them their due. There is second place Alexander Van de Zandt and his Hyperslide Power Slide entry, and third on the board is going to be the P1 Docs machine of Hamilton Akabuezi, and so they will finish second and third. For me, Collins, this was, Jacob, this was a dominant performance for Phil Kraus. I don't think we've seen something like that since we started broadcasting these races, for sure.
No, I don't think we have. The last instance I could think of it was maybe a INDYCAR iRacing Series race I was in at Milwaukee, where Rob walked the field. I think he might have lapped all the way up to second. I might have to double check that one, but he was on another level and then some at that particular event. So it's definitely something I've seen before with those Power Slide Team Hype entries, just putting on a clinic.
100%. If you'd like to continue to watch the clinics, I take that the clinics, and I do mean driving clinics, and they don't necessarily have to be from the Hyperslide Team Hype Power Slide cars. We do have plenty of iRacing action teed up for you right here on the P1 Broadcasting Network. Tomorrow night, it is going to be the flagship broadcast. That is the INDYCAR Oval top split. That is going to be from Gateway. That'll happen at 8:15. Gary Godso, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, Justin Petchauer are going to be on the call for that one. On Wednesday night, we've got another double header. It's going to be the Horizon INDYCAR Series. They're going to go from Iowa, 8 p.m. That'll be myself and Ryan Eric King. We are the B team because the A team is going to be calling the Formula Indy Series at Nashville. You watch that Formula Indy Series, Jacob?
I think I caught a bit of them at Spa the other week.
That is a ton of fun, my man. They run IR18s to F1 rules, so standing starts and all of that. They also only run one oval per season, and this season the oval is Nashville, so that's going to happen 8:20 on Wednesday. Thursday night, Sam Crow and I, we're going to have the AMA Blackmagic Studios Grand National Series, 8:20 pre-race, 8:35 start. Friday and Saturday are off this week on the P1 Broadcasting Network, and that brings us to Sunday, the votive INDYCAR Oval Series live from Charlotte, 7:50. Gary Godso on the call. Brings us right back to Monday night, where Clindy is going to return to the booth. He will let Jacob Collins be upside down on the racetrack in the plain white wrapper because we're headed to the beach. Long Beach, Mr. Collins.
Boy, howdy, am I ready to see some hairpin action.
I'm sure you are. And that brings us to the schedule. The week after Long Beach, so 2 weeks' time, we're going to be at Portland. And we were talking about this earlier. The schedule in this Open Series is a bit of a dandy. We're going to go to Long Beach from the short oval at Phoenix, then to Portland, which is a track none of these drivers have seen. And so I expect a bit of a mix-up when it comes to the front runners, the setups, things of that nature, just because nobody has any information. We're going to have Twin Ring Motegi. That's going to be in 3 weeks' time. Then Barber and a stretch of Daytona bookended by Indies. The Indy Road Course, the Daytona Road Course, and then the Open Wheel Oval at Indianapolis. The last two races in the Open schedule, Detroit for Belle Isle and Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway. For everybody at the P1 Broadcasting Network, myself, Mark Murphy, Jacob Collins, our founder, Gary Godso, and the entire crew, we do want to thank all of our viewers because without you, this is not possible. Thank you all so much. If you haven't already done so, make sure you smash the like button, ring the bell to subscribe to the channel. That's the best way that you can help us and help promote these drivers. We do also offer a GoFundMe if you'd wish to financially contribute to the channel. These broadcasts do take time and money to produce. We would also like to thank all of the first responders, the military, the police, the firefighters, the EMTs, the nurses in the ER in the middle of the night, all of those people who stay awake so we don't have to. God bless you. Stay safe. Jacob, I will see you at another track soon.
That you will.
Adios till tomorrow night, gang.